Mary and I teach focusing and interactive focusing. We use a system that we call the building blocks. It's very similar to most of the ways people have devised for themselves to teach focusing. Jenlin has what we all know are the 6 steps of focusing. We've developed the building blocks. The building blocks are 4: safety, the body sense, the bodily felt sense, empathic, compassionate listening, and storyteller as teacher. So we'd like to tell you a little bit about each one of the building blocks. Would you like to talk about safety?
Sure. Okay, the first one is called safety, and that also includes the question of boundaries and the difference between unsafe and uncomfortable. So I want to address these. I believe that safety in any process is the ground of what might come in the process. If we're not safe, we have a built-in mechanism in our bodies that's going to say, stop. So safety has both an internal and an external kind of environment. Internally, we owe it to ourselves to keep ourselves safe. No one else can do that for me. And you would be amazed how many people I have met, when you talk about safety, they say, what do you mean? They don't know to check in with that place inside that feels safe or doesn't feel safe. Internally, I have the right to, as a human being, everybody has the right, to say stop if I don't feel safe. Now, the external way that we can keep ourselves safe is once we enter into the process, we don't change gears. Like if I'm going to listen to you, I don't switch and bring my own stuff in, so that you can count on me to keep it safe. Also inside ourselves, there's a way in which with focusing that we can check to see if we're just at a right distance to process something. If I'm too close to something, I can't get a sense of the whole of it. Like a painting, if I put my nose on the painting, I can't see the whole of it. But if I can check and say, okay, so there's this thing here, and I'm here on solid ground in relation to this thing. And I step back or I move forward depending on, can I still sense it? That's a way of keeping myself safe. It's like an I-it relationship where there's me and there is this thing that I'm processing, but we're not the same. And so I need all my available energy to sense, okay, so what is it about this whole thing that makes this whatever the felt sense would be? This is a very different process from forcing or pushing or trying to make something happening. There's a way of being very gentle and nurturing to whatever comes up in me, and to respect that, to honor that, not to criticize it, not to jump on it, not to say it's nothing or dismiss it. If there's a bodily felt sense about something, then there is something there. And so it needs the time and the rhythm to fully form, and for me to keep anything that might be negative off it. We sometimes compare it to what's needed for growth. And we all know that sunshine, gentleness, you don't pull on a plant to make it grow. So all of that are ways that we need to nurture in ourselves, and then when we're in relationship, the same applies. The second thing is boundaries. I think it's very important that each of us develop where I know where I stop and the other person begins. And we don't cross those boundaries. So that in this whole process, there's a tremendous respect for the person inside, the person behind the eyes. Who is this person? What are they up against? And can I take them in a way that gives them the space and the room and the time to come to whatever the right way might be, and I don't know that. So the question of boundaries is very important. That keeps it safe also. The other thing I want to say is that there's a real difference between unsafe and uncomfortable. And when we teach this, Janet and I have an exercise that we actually have the people do, go down inside and get a felt sense of some experience that's unsafe. And then we move that over after there's been the time to do it. And uncomfortable. I may be very uncomfortable in working with something that I need to process, but it's different from unsafe. And we try to do discernment exercises to help people get the very specific differences between unsafe and uncomfortable. And it's at least helping people become aware of the very fine-tuning that the body has in relation to those things. So that's kind of one of the first basic ground rules for any process, is whether or not I feel safe.
Yeah, I more and more value the importance of safety and my sense that I'm safe in a process.
So I think that for me also the interactive, being a therapist and having a large private practice in Chicago, I worked with a number of couples. And I could teach them how to listen to each other, and then I would help them do that. But after the interactive, and as we were developing the interactive, and I began using pieces of the interactive with them, I could not believe the changes that happened. It was like a whole new world opened up to them in their relationship. And I would begin, as we often begin with, okay, what is something that you really value? We know there's all this conflict and there's all this stuff going on, but what is it that you really value? Now let's take a minute to do that. And you would be amazed at what happened, because they learned, in speaking from the felt sense, that it wasn't all this anger and negative energy, and so it was to balance that, to get them grounded in that kind of setting before they worked on their tensions between them. And that, I think, is around safety also. I think we will process as deeply or as much as we feel safe. Almost like the body as a built-in mechanism. If I'm not safe, it'll only take me so far. If I'm safe, it'll take me farther. And so the whole experience for me has been one of growing into an appreciation of the value of the focusing process. Okay. And it's a process that I feel we're only at the edge yet, and it's always more, always moving to the more. And this is just a small aspect of how Janet and I have tried to move to the more.